What you see on the background of this image is an alleged drug addict. This is an image I found on Bing search. Whether it's a real drug addict or it's an actor, this is what's being shown. Someone is injecting heroin into themselves, and probably he isn't doing it well because there is blood on his arm. When you're confronted with an image like this, it tends to provoke horror in you, that the human being becomes so dependent on a substance. Well, let me tell you one thing. Drug addicts out there are addicted to physical substances. That's why you often notice an immediate stagnation in their physical health. Well, some do it in a more, I won't say beneficial, because nothing beneficial about drug addiction. They do it in a more practical way in which they appear to be doing well, but in fact they're not doing well. But with drug addicts, sooner or later, well often sooner, you'll notice it once they don't have their dope anymore, because their bodies will experience withdrawal symptoms. Why? Because the body became familiar with the substance, that the organs became attached to the substance. The foreign element became part of the function of the body, so when the foreign element disappears, the body is confused. And there will be side effects, and those side effects need to be managed well, because those side effects can be deadly. I'm talking about the withdrawal symptoms. Now, when it comes to human relationships, many folks are like this. They are supply seekers. They are seeking people to make them feel good about themselves. Even people who are quote unquote independent. There's no such thing as an independent human being. Okay? But many of those so-called independent people are really emotionally numb, and that's why they can treat people like trash or dump people without feeling anything. But even those people need validation from others to remain emotionally cold. Because without the validation from others, concerning their numbness, they collapse also. This supply seeking is narcissistic. I'm not saying that if you are doing it, you are a narcissist. But it is narcissistic because all centered around relief for the I. It's all about the I, or it's all about the me. Me. The me needs relief. The me doesn't want to be challenged. The me doesn't want to face things. The me wants to be left alone. It's all about the me. Or the I, which word you prefer. Supply seeking is worldly. Supply seeking is dangerous. I've seen often where people tell you to not become intimate too quickly with someone, but first to know each other better. I can understand this advice of not getting too intimate, too close with someone very quickly. However, this advice to learn to know someone better is a trap also. Because in both cases, you're not operating as a spirit being. And especially operating in a Christ-centered manner. This whole idea of taking time to know someone is all about checking whether someone is a good supply for you or not. That's what it's all about. So it's all about you having expectations that you don't examine, because to examine your own expectation means that you have to challenge yourself, and you don't want to be challenged, so you look for people where you are secured from being challenged. That is what it's about. When a common worldly individual is challenged, they tend to withdraw from the relationship and they tend to look for replacement. When a narcissist or when a reprobate is challenged, they can't handle it, they explode. There's narcissistic injury and they get out of hand. That's the big difference. But in both cases, they are both seeking supply. But when the narcissist does it, people see it as a defect. But when other people do it, people say, well, it's just normal. It's dysfunctional. Whether it's a reprobate doing it, whether a reprobate is just a narcissist or a full-blown sociopath, it doesn't matter. Whether it's someone that's a reprobate doing it or someone who's just a common sinner. Or if a believer's doing it, because there are also believers doing it. Supply seeking is not Christ-like, it's not Christ-centered, it's worldly. And here is why supply seeking is so dangerous. When you're seeking supply, you don't notice everything that you need to notice. When you are supply seeking, you have a lens, you have a framework that you're using to filter others. And if something passes through the filter, it's good. If it doesn't pass through the filter, it's bad. But you don't even question whether your filter is right or not. And this is why many perish due to lack of knowledge. Unfortunately, including believers. Because they listen to what the world tells them, and because it sounds good, they apply it to their lives without checking whether it is in line with Christ or not. One thing I've noticed about Christ is that when Christ went out to pick his disciples, he didn't sit down, converse with them for a few weeks to learn them better, and then to get to an agreement if they wanted to follow him. No. With Christ, there was no honeymoon phase. Christ came and said, follow me. To some he said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. I believe he said that to Simon, which he later renamed to Peter. Yes, he did it. He just said, follow me. He was walking, he's God himself, okay? But as a human, he walked in the power of the Spirit, his own power. He walked in power. And that's why he could just pick someone, said, follow me, and the individual would follow him. They would trust him instantly. Why? Because he walked in the power. He didn't just go around and tell people to follow him. He didn't say to everyone. When he saw someone with potential, he invested in that potential and he decreed it. That's why he said, follow me. That follow me was a decree that Christ made. And the decree worked out. Okay? Now, the decree worked out. Not everyone managed the benefit of this decree well, because there were disciples that left Christ. That's why he remained with only 12, of which one betrayed him. So the decree worked, but not everyone could handle the decree. Not everyone could handle what came with it. But nevertheless, Christ walked in power. He did not walk in supply seeking. Christ was not seeking supply because he is a supply. He is the true vine. He is the new wine. He is the bread from heaven. He is the way, the truth, and the life. So why would he go out seeking supply? He wasn't doing that. No, I know that you are not Christ. I know that you are not the Most High. But you ought to walk in his footsteps. You ought to rely on his power. You ought to rely on his Holy Spirit. So you shouldn't go around seeking supply. No, you walk in power, so when you walk around, you have an impact. You are overruling the darkness of this world. But not all believers are operating in the power. There's still believers that are seeking relief, therefore they are seeking supply. And seeking supply puts you on the radar of the enemy. Because once you are seeking supply, the enemy will supply. But his supply will trap you. His supply will endanger you. His supply will lead you away from operating in faith. His supply will keep you out of the will of the Heavenly Father for you. Look, when it comes to supplies, for example, water, food, or if you have a car, gasoline, there's nothing wrong with looking for those. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this attitude of seeking validation from others. People that always want to be left alone, they're also seeking validation. Their refusal to be involved with other people is also a form of supply seeking. They want to have everything on their own terms, and they refuse interaction with others just to validate their refusal. So they're also seeking supply. And such folks, when they are frustrated, they will always blame someone else for what they're doing. That's also supply seeking. Supply seeking is what all people do unless they are renewed in their mind. But I'm not talking to people of the world now. I'm talking to those that walk by faith. I'm talking to those in Christ. Unlearn supply seeking. The world conditions you into supply seeking. The world conditions you also to seek the supply from the pagan rulers. So they condition you to be codependent on them. This whole financial system we have worldwide is supply seeking. You're conditioned to seek the value of this thing that we call money, which actually doesn't even exist in reality. We have currency, and currency in practice is money, so money itself doesn't exist, but you've been conditioned to seek the value of this thing called money, but you can't get it for free because all else it wouldn't be valuable. So you're told you need to work for it, or you need to do something for it in order to have it. So it doesn't have worth in itself. The worth comes from you, from your labor, or from you allowing others to exploit you. So you are turned into the supply, into the narcissistic supply for the pagan rulers and for demons. So supply seeking will always turn you into the supply for some predator. Let me repeat it one more time. Supply seeking will turn you into a prey for predators. And that is what happens all around us over and over again. And common people, they keep falling for it because they never examine their own thinking. Because once they do that, they will realize that they need Christ. And this goes against their pride. This goes against their quote-unquote personal will or free will, as they call it. That goes against that delusion that they are self-entitled. They can will whatever they will. And common people can't handle this. They don't want to be challenged in such a fundamental way. That is why they are offended by the gospel, because the gospel smashes down all their narcissistic attachments. This needs to happen. The Most High said his words like a hammer. It is like a hammer because it smashes down all mental attachments that are harmful. But common people are attached to those mental attachments. The Most High said his word is like a fire because it burns away all that is not valuable in the long run. What I mean valuable is beneficial to your long-term well-being. But common folks are self-destructive, but they don't want to see it. Instead, you give them a few people who are far worse off than they are, and they feel relieved. And when they feel relieved, it has a healing effect on them. It doesn't heal them, it has a healing effect. It's like physical drugs or recreational drugs has a healing effect that gives them a boost to move on. And it's this narcissistic relief that worldly people depend on. The pagan rulers of this world know this. The governments know this. The religious leaders of this world know this also. That's why they can keep the human population trapped in patterns. If you don't want to be stuck in patterns, then unlearn. And for faith, supply seeking. Christ is your provider. You don't need supply if you have provision. And Christ is the provider. Rely on Him for everything. Yes, you are active. You go to your job. You pay your rent. You do what you have to do. But besides all this, realize that Christ is your provider. So learn to walk in His power. Be Christ-centered. Agree with Christ. Then, only then, you'll be at peace.